and welcome to the Webinar Talk Show. I'm Thom Singer.
And I'm Eliz Greene. And one of the things that we know to be true, when you're having a virtual event, it is nice to have MCs that are not just MCs. Both Thom and I sit in our own expertise. And if, for example, you have a guest who's tardy to the party or maybe just isn't able to join you, we can jump in and fill that gap with great content right away.
And that's one of the reasons why you want to have an MC, because in this virtual world, more things can actually go wrong than happen in that in-person conference situation.
That's very true. We're all kind of at the mercy of technology. But when you have somebody who's comfortable and confident and can jump in, that makes the difference. Here are some things that you may not know about Thom Singer. Thom is an expert on human connection and potential, and he has spent the last decade speaking at virtual and in-person events, working with people to have real connection and engage. Thom, do you think it's possible for people to actually connect if they're attending a virtual event?
Well, I think in the last couple of months, we have learned a lot of things. And one of those things is that, a virtual event or even a webinar can be more than just a talking head over PowerPoint. You can actually have an engaging presentation, and you can get people to connect, to participate, and to network by using all of these technology tools that we have. So yes, I think it's possible, and I'm seeing it happen with my clients.
Which is great. Now, one of the things that you have been talking about, especially lately, is this connection part, that we all are feeling isolated because we are, in fact, isolated. What are some things that we can do to make ourselves feel more connected?
Well, before COVID came, there was research that showed that 20% of people in North America were already feeling lonely, isolated, disconnected. And that's counter to what people would think, because we have our phones. So we think that we have LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. We think everyone should just be feeling this surge of human connection. But the reality is 1 in 5 people were feeling totally left out of the party, even when they have these tools. So loneliness has reached sort of a new level in society. And so when the COVID thing happened and we had to shelter in place and we had to start working from home, one of the things that I got worried about was that this problem was going to get exasperated and that people were going to lose those valuable connections that they have in business that aren't only good for their career, but for many people are actually a big portion of their social structure. So I came up with this term that we have to social tighten while we are social distancing. So I'm talking a lot on webinars and conferences about this whole concept of social tightening. And it's really kind of simple. There's just a few things that we can do.
Well, tell us what they are, because I know for me, I can sit alone in my office all day and really, other than you, not talk to anyone.
Well, it is true, right? We get into this situation where many people I talk to say that they're busier now because of this current work from home situation. They're like, gosh, was I lazy before? I don't have that free time, where I used to go talk to my coworker or go out to lunch with friends, and they're just working all day. I talked to someone yesterday who had 7 Zoom calls in a day for work-related and ancillary things. So all they did was stare at a computer all day. So the first tip that I give people is you have to take it upon yourself. You have to sort of take ownership to reach out to the people in your network. And this isn't just business. This is your friends, your family, your coworkers, your clients, your vendors, your community, people in your faith community, etc. You have to take ownership to reach out and have those personal conversations, because if you don't do it, somebody else might not. And it's really important that we stay connected.
Okay, I get that we're supposed to reach out, but it's sometimes hard to know how to reach out, because you don't want to be a pest. And as much as I enjoy a good emoji, it's not, it doesn't feel really connected when you just get, sunshine, happy face, yay. How do you actually reach out?
Well, I think we have to be more personal and less broadcast. So the one thing that happened to me immediately when this all began is I started getting twice as many emails every day, most of them newsletters, and people adding me to their lists, sending me other people's news clips about COVID. Well, I can read the news. I didn't need that from every single person to tell me to go wash my hands. So I think we have to make it personal, which means that outreach is going to be different for everybody, because the way I reach out to my brother Bob is going to be very different than the way I reach out to the executive director of an association who I have done work for in the past. So you have to make it personal, and you have to use the communication tool that works best with the relationship you have with that person. So for my brother, I'm going to call him. For that executive at an association, I'm probably going to email. For someone else, I might use text or social media. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. But if you're not reaching out to 2, 3, 4 people a day, you're missing out on an opportunity to keep your relationships active.
And that's not just personal relationships, it's business relationships too. And I know as a business owner, I'm a little leery about reaching out because I don't want to appear to be salesy or taking advantage of the COVID situation.
Yes. Yes. You don't want to be too salesy. You don't want to be too in your face. Hey, I have a product for you. Because every company, every association, every person is dealing with different things. So we don't know, maybe they have a sick parent or spouse. Maybe they're dealing with educating their kids at home. So we don't want to just be like, here, buy my product, buy my service. So I tell everybody, when you reach out, what you need to do is you need to offer to help and show value. Early on in this, I heard someone say that helping is the new selling. And so you don't know what situations they're in, but if you just try to provide value, I don't think anybody says, how dare they reach out to me and try to be helpful and provide value.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. What would you suggest? Do you have any tools to do this better?
Well, we all have the tools to do it better. Think about this for a second, Eliz. What if this was 1995 and we had to go into a worldwide quarantine? How would you even get your information? You would have had 3 or 4 television networks and some radio and your telephone. And that was your communication tools. And
and not a smartphone, it was actually connected to the wall.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people didn't in 95 even have mobile phones. So, we didn't have the tools to keep our human connections active. We now have more tools than at any time in history. Now, the problem is if we use them wrong and we spam people and it's just a broadcast or a newsletter or a group text to 500 people, it's not serving us well. But we have all of these tools, whether it's a text, whether it's a phone call, an email, social media, direct messaging via these different platforms that we use, sending someone a video, FaceTiming them. I have a daughter who lives in Chicago. She and her fiance, every couple weeks, we have dinner together via Zoom video so that we can actually just sit there and chat for an hour the way we would if we were together in person in our home or in a restaurant. So we have the tools. Don't be scared to use them. But as I said earlier, make sure you're using the right tool to communicate in the right way with the right person. Because one of my clients, inviting them to a Zoom dinner may or may not be appropriate. Some of them might think that's awesome, and others will be like, this is weird. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
That makes a lot of sense. And being creative with the tools that we have as well.
Yeah, being creative. That's what we need to do. I mean, you and I started doing these interviews of people with the webinar talk show as a way. Now, granted, it is a broadcast, but it was a creative way to show that you didn't just have to have that talking head over PowerPoint. You could actually get people to go deeper, be more personal, make it more fun, like you're sitting at a bar, having a glass of wine, and still educating people. That's a creative way to use tools that we have. There are so many examples of people out there who are doing things as a way to be creative and how they're connecting with their customers. One of my favorites is a bar here in Austin, Texas. I saw this on the news, and I apologize, I don't know the name of the bar, or I would plug the heck out of them. But early on, 8 weeks ago, when they had to shut the bar, they realized this is a disaster. There's no way for a bar to make money if their doors aren't open and they're not selling alcohol and playing music.
Right.
What they did is they wanted people to come back as soon as this is over. So they started every night doing a mixology class, and they would publish on their
Oh,
Facebook page the ingredients that you would need several days out. So when you did your shopping, you could stock up. And then at, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, their bartender would get on Facebook Live and teach people how to make a Manhattan, how to make a
super.
mango margarita, how to make, whatever the drink of a Bellini, whatever it was. And people would log on and watch this. And that was a way to use the tools that have existed for years in a creative
Mhm.
way to keep in touch and add value to their clientele. So all of us can do that no matter what industry we're in.
Well, and that takes a little bit of courage because they're trusting that even though they're teaching people how to make all of these drinks themselves, their clients are still going to come back, which I think is smart. A lot of those drinks are very complicated and need lots of ingredients. So I'd rather somebody else make it for me anyway.
Well, and I think that what it does is it shows people a little bit of transparency, which is sort of my
Hmm.
last tip that I tell everybody is if you're having a rough time, let people know. I mean, they're telling people, hey, we're doing this so we can stay in touch with you because we want you to come back. They're not shy with saying the bar is closed. The bar staff and the wait staff aren't making money. So they then have a way for people to donate money to sort of tip their wait staff as they go so that the bartenders can then make a little bit of money along the way because they're suffering. They're having a rough time. And so this is their way of being able to tell their clients, hey, we're in a rough space, but because we're being creative, because we're reaching out, because we're providing value, you and I can have that relationship. And I think we all
Yeah.
have to be, nothing makes me more upset than people are kind of in the fake it till you make it mode right now.
Yes. Yes. Very true. As we look at being transparent, being creative, how do you translate that? So let's say I'm your friend who's sitting on 7 hours of Zoom calls. There's an opportunity to connect with the other people on those Zoom calls in ways that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. Do you have suggestions about, you had 5 great tips there. How would we use that in the virtual environment to actually connect with people that maybe we haven't connected with before, or we haven't connected often enough?
Sure. Well, taking this whole conversation full circle to where we started, when we're
Mm-hmm.
in the virtual environment, we can still socially tighten relationships with people we already know and create new relationships with people by using those tools that exist inside Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever platform you're using. And that is using the chat room. Also, what I see a lot of people doing, and your boss may not love this, but a lot of people are just using their text to talk to other
Mm-hmm.
people who are on the call. Maybe they're being a little smarmy, maybe whatever, but they're able to communicate through a different channel that may not be being recorded and have those
Right.
conversations that you would be able to have at the water cooler after a meeting. So you can still talk to people through different channels. Not everything has to be the official channel that the company is using. So, look for ways to do it. The other thing that you and I do a lot is after we interview people in this format, or when we're doing something for an association where we're hosting their conference, we will then do a debrief. As everybody says goodbye and leaves,
Right.
we stay on Zoom after it's over and we say, how do you think that went? What would we do better next time? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's another thing people can do is after these virtual calls, look for ways to go deeper with a few key people.
Well, and to turn the recording off if it's been recorded and allow people to interact too for a little while. Just have that, like, it's everybody picked up their pencils and papers and they're leaving the conference room. There's always that chit chat. You can create that same space, turn off the recording and let people talk to each other.
Absolutely.
There's no reason you couldn't.
No, and I had one client, they wanted to use sort of the Zoom breakout rooms for happy
Mhm.
hour after their 3-hour conference that they were having. But the company was a GoToMeeting shop and they wanted to do
Uh,
GoToMeeting for their webinar, but that didn't offer them the chance to break people up into breakout rooms. So what we did is we used Zoom afterwards and we told everybody in advance that this was like after the conference, getting on the bus to go to the museum for the networking happy hour. They were
right.
going to leave GoToMeeting, go to Zoom meeting, and we would break them up into groups of 5 or 6 where they could just have some chit chat. Now, there were about 400 people in the meeting. About 200 came to participate in the breakout session. So not everybody was into the idea of going to a Zoom happy hour, but half their conference was. And the same thing is true when you have an offsite. Not everybody goes, but it's perfect for the people who want to. So it's just thinking things through and keeping in mind that we can still network, we can still connect, and we can social tighten while we're social distancing.
Well, and really framing things in the virtual environment in ways that people understand in an in-person environment. So I love that you're getting on the bus and going to the museum for the networking happy hour. That makes perfect sense. People know how to behave in that environment. When we've been doing these sort of sessions for an association, we often describe the chat area. If we're doing a webinar and there's chat and Q&A, the chat area is the hallway. People then understand how to communicate in that. And of course, there's always a way to communicate, just with one person within that chat as well. I love all of those tips. Before we leave, could you just give us the rundown of those 5 things that we need to keep in mind to be more socially tightened?
Yeah, and they're easy. They're things that we should just naturally be doing all the time, even when we're not on quarantine. And number 1 is take ownership of it. Reach out to people. Be the person who reaches out and says, hey, how you doing? People for the most part like that. Don't be obnoxious. Don't do it too much. But people like it when someone reaches out to them. Number 2, make sure that you're offering to help and providing value. If that's what you're leading with, it's really hard for people to get annoyed because right now we all need help and we all need value.
True.
The third thing is use all the tools at your disposal. And remember, we have more tools now than we've ever had before. So thank goodness this didn't happen 30 years ago, or this would have been really hard to navigate. The next one is get creative. Look for ways to be different than everybody else in the way you reach out, the way you broadcast, the way you host your meetings, etc. Just a little creativity goes a long way. And then the last tip is be transparent. If you're having a rough time, if your company is struggling a little bit, just let people know you're doing the best you can because that's where we all are right now.
That is where we all are right now. And in that same frame, let's be transparent, Thom. We would love to help any association or organization who's trying to figure out how to navigate this live but virtual experience for their people. We can bring this sort of experience right to you and make it easy to do because we kind of know how this works. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if you have an event coming up.
We started doing this 6 years ago when we started the conference talk show, and we've now morphed it over a little bit to the webinar talk show. And the whole concept is that, we need to make it fun. We need to make it engaging. Think about watching the Today Show or Live with Kelly and Ryan. If it was just a series of videos, there would be no consistency and no context. And that's what we do with this style of interview that we host.
And certainly the social tightening aspect of it, really encouraging the participation of the virtual audience, which we don't get to see so much on these short little webinar talk shows, but when we do a larger event, certainly we are the eyes and ears and voice of that virtual audience and making sure that they're part of the conversation and are creating that community that we all crave for our people.
Absolutely. Well, Eliz, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We're going to be back in a couple of days with another interview here on Monday for the webinar talk show. So I'm excited about that. Who is it going to be on Monday?
It's going to be Kim and Jason Kotecki. They're both coming online. Twofer. We're very excited about that to talk about how they are navigating this time with less stress and fighting their adultitis, which I think everybody is really going to enjoy.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. You can find out more about us at webinartalkshow.com, or there is a Facebook page for the Webinar Talk Show where you can see all of the interviews that we've done. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.